Okay.
So, like there's definitely like a few questions I like wanted to like ask,
Sure.
and definitely like one of them was about the recent announcement of it's the uh no, I was almost about to say folk Wagner, but the
Oh, Forkbeard.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and kind of like
Uh,
what was the kind of like what was the inspiration behind that whole thing?
the inspiration behind that whole thing was people on HeadFi and elsewhere like complaining about our remote controls. They actually the final straw was like a guy he 3D printed like a rack to put all of his remotes in and to organize his shit remotes. And I'm like, okay, okay, we need to do something about this. But we didn't know what to do. We were actually going, well, maybe we'll do a unified remote. You
Yeah,
know, problem is, as soon as you do a unified remote, you'll cut something else, and then it's all garbage. It won't do everything that you need. And
like
that's when Martin wandered in and actually had pretty much exactly what we needed, which was a Bluetooth based app centric remote that actually worked and was really easy to use. And it very importantly did not hook up to any of your home control stuff or your Wi-Fi. It's just dead easy. Um, and so we decided to do that. But in the process of doing that, then we discovered a lot more things. It became much more than a remote control
yeah.
while we're working on that.
I did see the video like kind of like explaining that and like it showed like a little dial like showing like where the kind of the cutoff would be like for like the amp or like to see like where like the max would be for the amp,
Yep. Yeah.
which is something that I think is nice.
Yeah. It's funny because I put it this way. We are now able to answer questions that no other audio company can answer because one of the first questions we get is like, is Azure enough for these speakers?
Yeah,
Is Yallerhorn enough for these speakers? Do I need a Wotan? Do I
yeah,
need a Vidar? How much power is enough? And the number two question we get is like, well, it seems like I'm turning up the preamp a lot. Is it hurting anything? Is
yeah,
it, is it, it it's, it, since it's relay, based on relays, you typically have to turn it up farther than a regular
yeah,
preamp. And so I said, when we were in development, I realized it's like, well, we actually know what the preamp's set at, and we know what the gain is in the system, and so we can calculate out where you're going to get into trouble. So unlike a remote control, this thing has intelligence, and all of the units talk to the app. The app performs a bunch of calculations, and then it can tell you, hey, you have this much left. You have plenty of headroom, and it'll change depending on the amp you're using, the gain you're using, the input you're using. It adapts.
yeah,
And that's really it's a kind of a party trick, but it's an indication of where we're going to go. We're going to in the next couple months or so, we're going to have a fairly big update to Forkbeard that will be very, very exciting for people who have already got their Forkbeard stuff. Let's just put it that way. It's much more than a remote control. It's now an ecosystem that talks to itself. All the units talk to each other, and we can do a lot of really neat things with that. That's why we did it. We wanted to actually answer difficult questions because um, I don't know of any company that can say, hey, plug in a Yallerhorn. Oh, we'll have a Yallerhorn F soon.
yeah,
Plug in a Yallerhorn, plug in a Saga, and it'll tell you like this is how much headroom you
yeah,
have. Pretty soon we'll be able to do that.
yeah. Like, and I've noticed that there are definitely like some speakers that require like certain
Yeah,
wattage and like certain things in order to like perform at like a certain level.
yeah. And there's in the old days when things were cheaper, you would just go and buy the biggest amp.
Yeah,
You know, you buy the 200 watt times two amp, and these
yeah,
days it's not as practical.
yeah,
So you really want to know what you can get away with.
yeah,
Plus, honestly, you don't want to have a giant amp sitting next to you. You probably want to, if
yeah,
if you're doing a desktop system, you probably
yeah,
want something about the size of the Yallerhorn, not the size of a Wotan.
yeah.
So yeah, and the thing is, all that stuff, like I said, it's really early. It's kind of a party trick. Eventually, we can get into a lot more, system characterization that can probably, take your speakers into consideration. So you're getting actual results for your speakers, not, general results.
Yeah.
But that's just one thing we can do. Like I said, there's an update coming that is just going to be completely bonkers.
And I definitely think it's nice because like some people have might have their setup in like a living room.
Hmm.
Some might have it in like a small studio.
Yep.
So someone only need like 20 watts, while some
Yeah.
people might need like 100 watts.
Yeah, it's like this little, my little office here. I have can't see them, a set of SVS like micro satellites, you know, and actually I'm using Wreckers. I'm not even using Yallerhorn. And that's tons for a desk. But like in the living room or in, like a speaker room or a home theater room, yeah, you probably want a lot more than
Yeah.
that.
Um, but like kind of like when testing out products, do you ever like listen to like kind of like what music do you listen to like to kind of like test things out?
Oh boy. A lot of weird stuff. I don't have this is not my main listening computer. Um, my musical taste, I think, is fairly horrible. Um, People always ask me, "What do you listen to?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's everything from Stan Ridgway, which is an old '80s dude who was like in Wall of Voodoo and stuff, to horrible stuff like Bob Log, or if you really want to break your brain, uh, try. There's an old song called "Harley David, Son of a Bitch." Um, it's a horrible song, absolutely awful. It's an earworm though. It gets in your head and you can't get rid of it. That's not the only thing that I use, to listen. I actually go all the way from, jazz to modern electronic stuff. But my musical taste is definitely pedestrian. If you want to talk to me about, the best recording of, a certain symphony, it's like, I don't know. I don't do a lot of that. But we
Yeah.
have people at shit that do, and we take their feedback.
Like kind of like when I listen to music, it's very much like the same way. Like it's not like just like one artist.
Yeah.
Like it's like I might listen to like definitely like some like jazz.
Yeah.
So artists like Bill Evans
Yeah.
or sometimes it'll be like James Taylor or
Yeah.
like Def Leppard or like
It's really funny because one of my go-tos is Muddy Waters.
yeah,
Their stuff is amazingly recorded. It's also very simple, and my more offensive friends, they go, "Well, you could play that on a walkie-talkie and it would sound good." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is not really, but
yeah,
I understand where you're going." So sometimes you want to stress, the system a bit. So you'll do something, modern electronic-y. Heck, you might even like do the Midnight, which is one of my favorite, new bands. But this is not like really a sound quality thing. This is like a complexity thing.
yeah,
Can it actually, do that and survive?
yeah,
And I've heard some systems that like they sound fantastic in Muddy Waters, and then you throw something even something that people would say, oh, it's probably okay recorded, like the Police or something
yeah,
at it. You throw that, and they're like, oh, and you're like, oh wow, that's terrible. And it's mainly this on the speaker side, the
yeah,
transducer side, but I don't know. So I listen to a lot of stuff. A lot of it's fairly horrible '80s or electronic, things because that's what I like. And I'll leave the classical to other people. Jazz is good from time to time.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm not a huge large orchestra, live music guy. Mike Moffat was. Mike Moffat is. He doesn't get out as much anymore, but he is into that. And we
Yeah.
have other people that are into that as well. So I just listen to what they say. Yeah.
Um, so so kind of so what kind of what beer is that?
This is it is Abracahopra, which is a local beer from Rebel Toad Brewing in Corpus Christi. So got to represent the local guys. So it's quite good.
Yeah.
It's an IPA, which is usually not my thing, but it's quite good. When you want to kind of relax.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. I usually have a beer or a glass of wine, and everyone goes, "Oh, Jason's an alcoholic." It's like, no, I'd like to have a beer or a glass of wine after a day like today, which I spent fighting a new amplifier that is being a real fun thing. It's caught on fire a couple times. It's tried to catch on fire a couple other times. It is just one of the most challenging, horrible things that we've done. And you've seen the picture of like the guy rolling the boulder up the hill. You know, someone photoshopped a thing. They're like, Jason doing the boulder, but then they put like a guy a guy above me with like an even bigger boulder, and it's called physics. I'm like, yeah, that's about where I'm at. I'm fighting the limits of resolution for some control stuff we're trying to do, and it's not pretty right now. We'll get it, but I wanted to get it this week and not next month.
Like with having like multiple different like products, like ranging from like kind of like the $100, like right around that price point to like into like something like a Kraken,
Yeah.
like kind of like it like kind of like what goes into designing a product like to make it kind of different enough between each product.
Yeah, and that's a great question because we'll be the first to tell you that if you're doing headphones,
Yeah.
probably all you need is like a Magni Unity with the DAC card in it, and you're probably fine for 99.999% of the headphones out there. It really is like overkill. Um, so why would we do more? Or if you're listening to speakers, you might be able to get by with a Yaller horn. You
Yeah.
could certainly get by with a Vidar,
Yeah.
for literally everything. So why go to a Wotan? Why go to Tears?
Yeah.
And it's usually to do these audio edge cases where if you throw some more money at it, and actually put things where it matters. Like in the case of Tears, we have a giant choke in it that actually is part of the power supply that helps not just smooth out the power supply, but it's an energy storage device. It doesn't fit in a Vidar, not in size or in price. It doesn't work. So we go up from there. From Magni to say a Jotunheim. Some people do want to run balance systems. Jotunheim is a really good balanced amp, and you can go all the way up to Mjolnir 3, which honestly I don't know why people buy that. It's Don't get me wrong, it's a great amp. I have one here somewhere. Oh yeah, I do have. I have one right here. It's a great amp.
Yeah.
The problem is you see the size of it. It's
Yeah.
huge. So when we started building, I'm like, no one's going to buy this thing. It's way too hot. It's way too huge. It's stupid. But again, we put chokes in it. It's dual mono, so it has two transformers, two chokes. It's really class A. It's got giant heat sinks. None of the stuff will fit in a Magni.
Yeah.
Um, and to me, it sounds better. But you notice it's not my primary thing. I usually go through the kind of the mid-sized stuff, and I have a prototype behind me that's may or may not hit prime time. We'll find out. I don't know yet. But yeah, as far as designing things, it's almost a entirely like a budget challenge.
Yeah.
It's like designing for Magni is a lot different than designing for like a Wotan. And we try to do the best at all the price ranges we do, and we don't go up into the super high price ranges. We try to keep it a more wallet friendly ish. Um, it's not always super friendly, but
Yeah.
it's not $50,000.
Yeah.
So,
Like I definitely like I've seen a lot of like pricey equipment. Like
mhm.
once things get past like a certain price points, I just lose interest, like, or it's just not like my thing.
Yeah, it's like I honestly I okay. I'm simple.
Yeah,
Once I get past a certain point, it's like, okay, if I could afford it, do I want it? And I'm like,
yeah,
no, because it might drive me nuts. It's like, will I hurt it? Will I break it? Is it depreciating? Is it, you know, am I really just hearing the price tag, or am I, hearing something? Because
yeah,
there may be stuff that we can't do. I mean,
yeah,
there are companies that do like solid copper chassis, machined out of a solid block of copper or something. It's like, does that do something? I
yeah,
don't know. Maybe I can't afford to do it because the price of that chassis, if you took a blank chassis like that, it would cost more than an Yggdrasil to buy
yeah,
a unit with nothing in it.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, it's again, put the money in the boards,
yeah,
minimal in the chassis. And if you've ever unpacked one of our products, our unboxing experience is like, here's a box, it comes in a box, take out of the box, throw the box away. We don't put any money in the
yeah.
box. Uh,
Like I did see a video on YouTube, like explaining like is it really worth spending that extra money? Like, and they were talking about like comparing like a $1,500 like amp versus like
mhm.
a $20,000 amp. And
Yeah,
like is it worth spending essentially like 10 times as much, or like for like just like that very little?
yeah, and that's the problem. I can't say because we
Yeah,
don't make that. We've had multiple people say, will you do a preamp, a preamp that's above like Freya,
yeah,
like a $2,000 or $3,000 preamp? And I'm like, maybe I could think of something like
yeah,
that. But when they say, can you do a preamp that's 20 or $30,000? I'll be like, I have no idea how to make that because I immediately start going to bathroom remodel, cheap used car, that's was kind of fun a few years ago. And now no one wants to buy it, but it's still sporty, stuff like that. That's where my brain goes. I don't go immediately go to, oh, audio gear,
yeah,
maybe a crazy new camera or something. I bought one of the new high res Sony's, but we're going to use that for work, so it's not that all that exciting. We're going to start doing some of our own photography, and we're going to start doing a little video series about like just functional stuff, like about how to connect things, how to work with our gear,
yeah.
and common questions.
And like definitely a major thing, like why I've enjoyed like the shit company is like on how definitely more accessible it is,
Hmm.
and like saying like you don't have to like spend crazy amounts of money to get something good, like,
Yeah.
and that it's okay, like you don't have to spend like these crazy amounts of money.
Yeah, and what's nuts is, I mean, it's like, well, oh, what's here? This is a Magna Unity with DAC. I use it all the time. You know, it's $189. It's one of my favorite things that we make.
Yeah,
If you said you can't use anything else but this, I wouldn't be depressed.
yeah,
May have had like, tungstens or something, some headphone that's like really, really hard to drive. Maybe I might be a little depressed.
yeah,
But in general, no. Um, the and again, the thing is, I go, oh, a Lear, a Lear Plus.
yeah,
It's not that expensive, but other people say, well, that's actually a pretty decent laptop, dude.
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, okay, fair, and I can start a business with a laptop. I can't start a business with a Lear.
yeah.
Like, fair, you know. So everything's relative. You know, some people are going to want to spend the money on other things.
Yeah.
And I think it's my goal to give you something you can try. You can see if you like it,
Yeah.
and then maybe you will continue up up the chain. I've seen a lot of our customers literally start with a Magni, go all the way up the chain to an Iggy, and then like actually go out to the car price stuff.
Yeah.
After that. So as far as I'm concerned, they can say thank you. We're bringing new people
Yeah.
to buy their stuff.
But like, and I've had the chance to listen to like the Magni and Modi, as
Hmm.
well as like the Modi and the uh like the like not it's like the little mini tube amp, like the small,
Oh,
like,
Bailey. Yeah,
yeah. Like
Bailey.
I've
Oh,
listened to
I must have one of those. Oh, Bailey.
like I've listened to
I usually have all of our small stuff around because I really like it.
like I've listened to like the Modi and the Veli, like even
Yeah,
for like probably around like the 250 mark for
yeah.
both of them. Like they're
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, and it's funny. We haven't done an update on Modi or
Yeah.
Modius for a while,
Yeah.
so it's probably time for us to take a look at those and see what we can do because I think we can do some fairly amazing stuff
Yeah.
now. But even then, I mean, a Modi's a great sounding thing. A lot of people have said Modius E is like it's the best thing you're going to get, under $1,000 in Delta Sigma. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a really good DAC. I mean, I use one in the home theater because I, I put it in like temporarily because I figure I'll swap it out for like
Yeah.
a Bifrost or something. And I'm like, nah, it's fine. I'm done.
Like that actually just made me think of a video that I saw where someone was doing a review on the Modi,
Hmm.
and like they started like they have like this like $20,000 system,
Mm.
and they had like one of those like cheap, not like cheap, but like those like DACs that are maybe like might be like $30,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
eventually upgraded to the Modi, and they were saying like even in a $20,000 system on how great it is.
that's funny. It's it's a good DAC.
Yeah.
It's funny. We don't sell as many as we used to anymore
Yeah.
because most people buy the card and Magni. But I think there's probably a space for $150 really killer new DAC.
Yeah.
But uh, making it our own, making it more than just another ESS DAC. That's the challenge. So we'll see if we can do something with that soon.
Yeah. Like especially like now being in Texas, kind of
Mhm.
like is there like any like things that you've noticed between California and Texas?
Oh boy, lots of things, lots of things. Texas is a weird state, but so is California.
Yeah.
They're just kind of almost completely opposite weird. Texas, there's a lot more people here actually do things like build houses, do plumbing, make things out of metal, make things out of wood. So you see a lot more guys driving around in trucks. You see a
Yeah.
lot more machine shops. You see a lot more industrial things. Paradoxically, our chassis are still done in California, mainly because it's like super high precision. And a lot of we're talking to some guys in Texas, but most people in Texas are kind of like, yeah, I keep getting that from California. That looks difficult, and I don't really want to do it. I want to make oil field pipes and gear, stuff like that. Um, but people are extremely friendly. Um, it's a great state. We're building a house up near Bernie. It's going very well. It's not like California, that it's very easy to get things done. That said, I mean, Texas has 4 seasons,
Yeah.
but they're like summer, and then there's still summer, and then there's winter, which lasts about 2 weeks, and then there's early summer. So you got 3 summers and a winter, and that's pretty much Texas weather. The weather in Texas is a lot hotter and gnarlier than California. You can have you can have moderately hot and extremely humid down here in Corpus, or you can have extremely hot and still pretty dang humid up in San Antonio. The hiking in San Antonio is pretty good, but it's not California. There is no hiking in Corpus. It is flat. This is a beach town, but if you want to get in the water, that's great because in the summer the water's like 86 degrees. California, I've never, ever, ever, ever seen the beach water above like about 70.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's trade-offs everywhere. I like it here, but it really, you have to have a high tolerance for weird. Texas is actually really weird. It's weirder than California in a lot of ways. So, and I guess I have a high tolerance for weird. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I love this place. Lisa, who I thought, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. She's like, I love this place. Why do we still have a place in California? So we actually sold it, and we're 100% in Texas. I don't know if we'll ever be Texan, but we're in Texas now.
But do you ever like listen to music on more like a casual, like like aspect, like just like if it's like being at home for like an hour, or like just where you don't have like a certain like mindset?
Yeah, a lot of that though is believe it'll be like while I'm working.
Yeah.
I'll actually be working on a board or something, and I'll just be listening. And I know I have something good when I don't want to stop listening, and I know I have something good when I start going, okay, this is too distracting. I'll just take off the headphones, finish this up, and go from there. But a lot of my listening is headphones, and then a lot of my casual listening outside of headphones is actually going to be home theater.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of movies and shows and stuff. So I will have sin in every house. I will be doing our surround in every place. Um, that's not the most popular thing in the world. We haven't sold a ton of them, but it's a really neat product, and we will keep it around in one way or another.
um do you have like a favorite like wine or beer?
Uh, that's tough because oh God, Texans are going to kill me. I actually think California's doing a better job at beer than Texas so far, at least what I've tasted. And I haven't been here as long. Uh, California does some really good, easy drinking, lagers and stuff for hot weather, which is weird. You'd think that Texas would do that better. Texas wines, I'm actually starting to enjoy more than California. So the Californians can now kill me and go, and actually they can go, wait, Texas makes wine? It's like, yes, Texas makes wine. And they have some really good wine, and they have some really bad wine. It's developing. It's not as mature as California. But yeah, it really depends. I mean, right now, a good red wine, something heavy, a Tempranillo or a Syrah, would be great. Either from Texas or California or France. I'm not prejudiced, or Australia. The good stuff comes from everywhere. You just got to find it.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's easier for me. I mean, the house we're building is 30 minutes away from wine country here, so it's like I'll just head up there and I'll know a lot more
Yeah.
very quickly.
um but like this question kind of like relates to like what we talked about earlier, like what was kind of like the motivation to make like the products like more accessible, like
It's what we've always wanted to do. Mike and I both like early on were like, things are too expensive. It'd be fun to do something affordable. Let's do something affordable. And the first thing we did, which is back in like 1992, The Cobalt 307, which was a DAC I did for Theta, was one of the first affordable DACs. Hilariously, that was $599 in 1992. So these days, it wouldn't be counted as affordable. That's probably over the Goonier price if
Yeah.
you account for inflation. But that was considered a cheap,
Yeah.
affordable, DAC. So we've always liked it. I like the challenge of like you only have a little bit of money.
Yeah.
How do you actually make it do the maximal thing it can do? I love that. I also think that any you know any I hate to call this a hobby. It's not a hobby. Any interest, because if you called like people who are into coffee like hobbyists, they'd lose their minds. But if you have any particular interest, whether it's coffee, photography, audio, or whatever, if you don't have affordable ways to get into it, it's going to die. Um, it's like if you couldn't take pictures with your iPhone now that are quite decent for basically free because you're going to have a phone. If you couldn't get a decent you know camera that is very cheap, you won't get into it. You won't
Yeah.
you won't decide if you like it. If you can't start with an AeroPress, for coffee or whatever, you can't decide if you want to go to the crazy brass things with levers and dials and stuff like that. If you never have a Magni, if you never have something of a Magni class or even a Fulla class,
Yeah.
you may never decide that audio is for you. And we have people who have listened to our stuff and they're like, no biggie. I mean, we actually had people who've listened to some of our really advanced, like pitch shifting stuff, where we're actually retuning things in real time. Which believe me, you can hear. It's not like, oh, I think it's different. It's like, no, it's radically different. We've had people listen to that and go, I don't hear it. So this, audio may not be for them. That's fine. But let's have people try it and see, rather than like, oh, well, if you save up $170,000, you can get our full system and you can see if you like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, sorry, bro, I'm getting a Z06 and getting change back.
Like, and like this is definitely like one thing that I've realized, like definitely like from my own personal experience, not everyone has the ability to spend like
Yeah.
that thousands upon thousands of dollars to get like one item.
Yeah. It, it's a lot of money. I love it when they say, "Oh, this is our budget product," and I'm like, "It's $5,900," and they're like, "Yeah, it's the budget product." I'm like, "Your budget and my budget are two totally different things." But it's like, but if I can say, "Hey, for the price of a decent, a really good like dinner, you take someone out to dinner." For the price of a really good, steak dinner or whatever, a fancy, fairly fancy eating thing, you can try out
Yeah.
an audio thing and see if it's for you. That's one thing. If it's like, when you're getting into used car territory, it's like, no, it's not so great. But that's me. Also, okay, and I truly believe this. And I think it's on our site, and I know I've told multiple people this. It's like buy the speakers or headphones first. Get the expensive ones you want.
Yeah.
I'd much rather you spend more money on that than our stuff. I don't want you to have, a $5,000 stack and $500 speakers. It should be $500 speakers, $5,000 speakers and a $500 stack. If you can do it, I don't think you can even do that with ours. But you get where I'm going. I would like to let you spend more money where it matters, which is in the transducer, the headphone, or the speaker,
Yeah.
than with our stuff.
Like actually like just made me think like it was probably like mid-December. I like there's this guitar store in Tarzana
Mm-hmm.
that's really like well known,
Mm-hmm.
and like they have like a lot of like used kind of used slash vintage stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and there definitely are like some like things that are like I just look at the prices. I'm like just like is it really worth?
Only it's fine. Yeah, everyone says only you can say if it's worth it to you, but I don't know. when it starts getting, into extreme prices, it's
Yeah.
just so hard to justify.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but I'm cheap. So I may be crazy. I'm definitely cheap. And maybe that's a benefit to audio, and maybe it's not. Um, Tyler and I were talking about, like, oh, I had this idea for, another company we might do. And he's like, well, what would be your goal for this company? I'm like, to design stuff. And he's like, that's it? And I'm like, right. I like to design things. I like to make them. He's like, and that's it. He says, it's not like, you're going to sell it, or you're going to, build up the equity, have employee on. I'm like, I don't know any of that stuff. This just gets me to design other stuff. And that's what I like to do. I like to design things and make stuff. And thankfully, I have a lot of, good people helping me, because I didn't do the digital side of things, so we have Dave, and we have Ivana, and we have Mike, and we have Martin now, doing that, and Stefan. So we have like a whole digital team, but that's a lot more difficult than the analog side. So, it's like basically keep me happy by, putting me in front of schematics and let me play with that. And hopefully I'll come up with stuff that's, reasonably affordable.
Yeah.
And the digital team does the same. The stuff that they're showing me now is just absolutely bonkers. Like I said, a couple of months, you'll see it's totally different ballgame.
Like I know like there are people that are like from like a consumer standpoint, there are people that are like into like tubes and
Yeah,
like all the analog side of stuff, but there are people that are like into like digital. Like but I'm kind of like the person that's just like as long as that sounds good,
yeah.
I could care less.
I'm with you. I Okay, sorry. I'm with you, except I'm very lazy. So whatever sounds good and is not a lot of effort.
Yeah.
So uh, I actually have a soul. I have one of our record players that we did for a very short time. I have never unpacked it yet. When I get the new house, I will unpack it and set it up. But the reason I haven't is it's just too easy to actually go and, go to Kobuz, find something to listen to. I have thousands of CDs. I listen to some of those because, I haven't heard.
Yeah.
But I listen to a lot less than I do streaming. Streaming has really changed everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's for better or worse. Um, Martin emailed me the other day and said, okay, so he said, how come the same CD, the same master, the same everything sounds so much better played on Erd than streamed? And I'm like, it's magic. And he's like, I do not like that answer. I said, it's magic. He's like, no, there's a real answer. I'm like, no, there is no real answer. I said, honestly, you could be fooling yourself, or there could be a difference. And I believe there is a difference, but not everyone hears it. And it does take you down really deep rabbit holes of what matters, because if the digits are the same, it should be the same. I mean, that's the most basic thing of all. And I'm like, oh, I just don't want to think about this. But every time we get into analog, into turntables, it sounds really good. It's very addictive.
Yeah.
And then, I'll listen to it for a while, and then I'll get tired of cleaning the records or whatever, and I'll put it away. CDs are a lot easier, but streaming, it's like, well, oh yeah, that song I heard, can I find it? And that's what's totally different. That's the biggest change in music since probably I started listening to things.
Yeah.
Music used to be very scarce and expensive. The first 4 CDs I bought in 1984 were almost $100, because I had 2 imports in there that were $25 each. 4 CDs, $100 in '84. I don't even want to know what the
Yeah.
price is on
Yeah.
that, because if I put that in Microsoft stock, I'd be a trillionaire or whatever. Who knows? No one cares. The But that's how it always used to be, and that's why you'd get a record copied onto tape, give it to your friends, or do the same with CD or whatever, because it was scarce. Now that we have streaming, for a fairly reasonable,
Yeah.
vig per month, you have access to more stuff
Yeah.
than you even know about. It's impossible to know everything that's on Qobuz, and people, constantly complain, well, their library is somewhat limited. I'm like, limited by to what? Are you kidding me? It's like compared to Spotify, yeah, probably. But I mean, compared to your CD collection that you don't have anymore, your records, your mixtapes from the 1990s, no, it's not limited. So it's totally different.
Yeah.
But
Like I kind of like have like a mix. So it's like I do definitely do have like a collection of like vinyl
mhm,
CDs, but I also stream. So and like
yeah,
definitely one of the be benefits of doing something like Pandora, Spotify, and all that is like having a lot more access to like different artists,
yeah,
genres, and stuff.
yeah. And I mean, when like I said, when I was getting into music, that was locked up. I
Yeah.
mean, you would either hear it on the radio, you know, or you'd buy it, and that's all there was. There wasn't like, oh, let's do a search for
Yeah.
you know other bands like that. It just didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't exist. So yeah, so that's a huge advantage. And then people will say, well, but it might not sound quite as good as a CD or whatever. I'm like, that's nice, but this is totally different. Streaming is totally different, and it is a benefit. You know, um, are there? Can you make it sound better? Can you? Yeah, sure, but that's a different argument. Access to music is totally different and better.
And like so there's a place down in that's on like on Railroad down in Newhall.
Yep.
Uh that's like just north of like downtown Newhall. It
Mm-hmm.
it's in like that little complex with all like the white buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And like they definitely do have like a number of like a massive collection of like CDs that
Right.
are might be like $5 or like
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of like they're in like that probably $5 to $10 range.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've gotten like a good amount of like CDs from that.
CDs are the biggest deal
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
If you want to own music, CDs are the best deal. And sometimes you can go to thrift stores and like it'll be like $1 a pound,
yeah,
basically. I'm like, okay, you know. But again, it's because most people are streaming, but that means you're paying every month
yeah,
forever. And then there's the question of what version do you have? Because it's is it the remastered version? Can you get the original version? Do you like the original version better? Are they maybe messing with the versions? Because I told Martin, I said, well, maybe it is actually the remastered. And he's like, no, it isn't. I checked. I said, maybe it has actually been through some processing. And he's like, oh, that's not a fun thing to think about. I said, yeah, because you don't know. You have no idea what you're getting. But again, if you were listening to FM back in the day, it went through all sorts of processing, all sorts of compression and loudness and stuff like that. So it's like, again, you didn't know what you're getting. You still enjoyed it,
yeah.
so does it matter?
Like especially like with kind of the generation that I'm like kind of grew up in, like definitely one of my like earliest memories definitely is listening to music on the radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And definitely like at that time like I could care less about like sound quality just because like I didn't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah. I think everyone starts like that. And then you decide, if you want to go crazy.
Yeah.
Um, my whole thing probably started with a bunch of gear I bought from a wholesaler called DAC back in the days. They had like 30 band EQs and SAE power amps and stuff like that, and I'd buy them for you know vastly discounted things. And I started building speakers, And it's like, so sorry, I'm so deep into it that it's like you can't get me out of
Yeah.
audio now. But I decided early on this is for me. Other people will be like, these people are crazy. Why they use their $16,000 espresso machine. It's like, well, you're crazy too. That's fine. Everyone's crazy.
Like it was it was actually like around, so it was the recent like Thanksgiving. Like I had the chance to listen to like one of those like crazy setups that
Oh, oh, I think I may have dropped out there for a moment.
like it was back in like, so it was the recent Thanksgiving. Like I had the chance to like listen to like one of those like crazy setups.
Hmm.
It just, well, it did sound good. It just wasn't my thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, once you get into the big price
Yeah,
stuff, it's like, are you doing it, to a actual higher end standard, or are you doing it to your preference?
yeah,
Um, I had the same thing at a guy. It's like, oh, you got to hear this $750,000 system. And I
yeah,
sat down and he played it. And this was phono based.
yeah,
And I'm like, I said, so besides the fact the amp is clipping, I think you have a blown tweeter over there. And he's like, what? And he had a blown tweeter and the amp was clipping. And he's like, how did you hear that? I'm like, that was dead obvious. I don't know how you missed that. I said, but I design gear. So I'm usually listening for stuff that's messed up. So, and he went and had it fixed. And it was still like, oh, that's nice. But
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
do it.
And like I kind of like realized with like once things get past like a certain price points on how very like analytical that stuff is, like on how like crystal clear it is.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can actually get that clarity, you can get that resolution without it being annoying. And that seems to be at least part of the magic of like the super high end. But that's rough. It's the hardest thing to do is to balance, detail versus, you know, warm, fun, nice to listen to.
Like I kind of have a tendency to like lean towards like the warmer,
Yeah.
like
I think everyone does.
yeah,
Uh, That's where we started. I mean, our early stuff was very warm, very happy, very
yeah,
mellow. And of late, we're trying to get the detail in without making it
yeah,
not fun to listen to. And I think Mjolnir 3 does a great job of that. And I think that's why people buy it. But
yeah,
oh man, I mean, if everything has to weigh, 15 pounds and basically you can cook burgers on it, that's
yeah,
a rough trade-off to have it be right.
yeah. Like like I've had like experienced like a lot of stuff that like gets hot,
Yeah.
but like is it worth getting that hot for some like that product? Like
If it's not dangerous,
yeah,
sure. And honestly, the whole heat breaks down electronics is really kind of overblown. Um, we design things. We put a 5-year warranty on the higher end products, and so we think it'll last for 10.
yeah,
Or else we wouldn't put that warranty on it. And we'll calculate out. It's like if the capacitors are running at 45 degrees C, this is their typical lifespan, and
yeah,
45 is really warm.
yeah,
That's like full old school, like Asgard 1, kind of territory. The heat sinks on a Mjolnir 3 get a little hotter, but the chassis doesn't get that hot.
yeah,
The internals aren't that hot. So there are ways to manage it. But the thing is, it's like it seems like you crank up the bias on, especially on a Class A amp, and it will sound better. And what limited Mjolnir is like, how far can you turn it up?
yeah,
That's we basically turned it up until we couldn't do anymore, and we stopped.
yeah,
And that was 2 entire watts of Class A. That's what it takes to get a real Class A. The kind of Class A stuff is not typically Class A. But we won't get into that. We won't embarrass anyone with that.
Like so like when I usually do like listen to like either headphones or like speakers, like I
Mm.
usually don't I probably will probably go like a quarter way to like
Yeah.
half at the max.
At low gain, high gain.
Um I like like I usually listen to like I believe it's high gain.
Yeah. I like high gain, typically less feedback,
Yeah.
so typically will sound better, which is a controversial statement, I know. The gain switch on Mueller 3 does not actually change the feedback, so you can select either. I still think high gain sounds a little better. I don't know why it shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
Yeah.
But then again, you shouldn't be able to hear the difference with feedback either. So you know, this is this is the kind of thing that I deal with, on the fun side is like trying to figure out how to make, things sound better. On the unfun side is when just things don't want to work. And I've had a few days of it just not wanting to work right. And we'll get there though. We always do, or we find a way around it.
Yeah. So like as part of like my setup, I actually have the I actually do have a AM Millionaire.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like I know it has the switch like but that goes between like feedback,
Feedback and no feedback, and then push pull and single out it. Yeah,
but like with the feedback, like when I swap between like that, I've like I could not tell the difference.
yeah. Yeah, it's subtle. The difference, like on a Wotan between feedback and it's like it's really very striking. It's quite different, but that's it's a speaker amp,
Yeah.
and that would be on something like if you use like magnaplaners or
Yeah.
something that it does sound quite different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I tend to like low or no feedback things, so that's where I go. You'll never get the best measurements doing that, but I think measurements beyond a certain point don't matter too much.
Yeah.
That's me. So
And like for me personally, I don't like pay attention to like every single spec. Like
yeah,
like
it's
like I know like there's some specs that I follow is this powerful enough to power this headphone or like this speaker like that, but that's like the only thing I like focus on.
that's why we started separating out our specs into specs that matter and then all the other specs. And the specs that matter are kind of like, power enough for any headphone. Noise, you won't hear it. It's stuff like that because power matters,
Yeah.
noise floor matters. A lot of that stuff matters. But then it's like, oh well, this one is 121 synad and this one is 120.5. So the 121 is better. It's like I don't know. That's not enough information. So, um, and it is funny because I got to do this year where we set up a blind test between a Valley, which is like 40 dB,
Yeah.
synad, and a Magna Unity, which is like 118, and see if people can tell the difference. Because I guarantee you, a lot of these guys like, oh, it must be the biggest number ever. They could listen to that and go, oh yeah, definitely, the Valley is the higher measuring one. And I was like, yep, that's nice. So, and that should be audible.
Yeah.
40 should absolutely be audible, but not necessarily. So when you're talking about like, oh, this is only minus 80 and this other one is minus 110 and this is minus 120, it's like, well, below 70 or 80, I don't have any confidence you're actually hearing that. You're probably hearing something else.
Yeah.
40, you should hear, and I know personally it is very, very, very hard to differentiate between two things that should be super obvious. Heck, if you run phono through like a noise gate so you can't hear the clicks and pops, you run that against streaming. That's a lot rougher than you think it is. The problem is as soon as they hear clicks and pops, like that's phono. It's like yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we gotta do some more of that because honestly, yeah, it's what you like, it's what you can afford.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you can get started, without going broke, and then decide where you want to go from there.
I think that definitely is like a good tip for like people that are just like starting out.
Yeah,
Like because like some people don't know like where to start. Like, do I spend this much and get this? Do I spend this much and get that?
yeah, and there's so many choices. It's it's funny. I would start, on headphones. I'd start with Magna Unity with that card, and on speakers, I would probably start with Saga and a Vidar, because then you're just covered. The Saga and Vidar is a pretty good hit though because it's above $1,000.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we'll have to see what we can do to bring that down. Horn's not good for everything,
Yeah.
but it's a great near field and it's great for actually most things. I mean,
Yeah.
heck, I'm using a Kraken, in our home theater, and I have never, felt any limitation. And I'm coming from like a 5 times 200 watt per channel amp that weighed 110
Yeah.
pounds. And I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I'll clip it. I haven't yet to clip it, so I don't know. I don't know everything, and that's probably why some people don't like us. I'll freely admit I don't know everything.
Yeah. Like and I've had the chance to like listen to the wrecker, which is
Yeah,
like only in like the single digits for wattage.
yeah, it's tiny.
Like through some like bookshelf speakers,
Yeah,
and I actually do like it.
yeah. We have a guy here in Corpus. His name is Colton, and he does a lot of our sound check. He loves sound checking records because he will blast them so loud that I'll come out from the lab. And I mean, he's in a room that's probably 400 square feet, and we're in a lab that's like 600 square feet, and we have like doors between us. I'll come out and say, "Turn it down," and he's like, "It's just a record." I'm like, "Yeah, I know," and he's like, why does anyone need anything more than this? I'm like, I don't know, but it's desktop again. And that he's not running like clips or anything super efficient. He's just running, I think the ELAC,
Yeah.
the earlier ELAC bookshelf. And it gets insanely loud for
Yeah.
what it is. And I am keeping a couple of those. We're closing them out now because they didn't sell so well. Probably because, people are like 2 watts. What the heck is that? I'm keeping a couple because I think they sound good and they play a lot louder than you
Yeah.
expect. Yeah.
Like so like the speakers that I have are actually clips.
Yeah.
So
Oh, then
that like and they don't need a ton of like power.
no, they don't. No, clips are great. I mean, when we introduced Sin, we introduced it with 5 records running a 5 channel system at a brewery in Corpus Christi that has about a 4,000 square foot like main area where they have all the the tables and everything. This was a night. This wasn't a private thing. This was like there were people there. The place was like 3/4 full. We were able to overpower them to the point where we're like, turn it down with records, with 5 records. Like, okay, this is really really dumb. And that's why I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do a Kraken because Kraken is like what? It's 15 times the power of a wrecker. You're not gonna hurt. But people are like, well, no, I want like 5 times 200 watts or 7 times 200 watts. It's like, knock yourself out. We can't do that. That's Emativa Class H tech or it's Class D or whatever. Hint by the Emativa. So if you need that kind of power. Emotiva does a great job at high power stuff. Um, but I don't know. And that's the thing. There's not a single answer for everyone. A lot of people don't like our stuff. A lot of people love our stuff. I hope you love it, because I like doing this. I want to keep doing this.
It, it, kind of with the shit stuff that I have, it definitely fits in the sound quality that I like,
Hmm.
and I which stuff definitely more of a kind of somewhat like a warmer, laid back, kind of casual type of thing.
Hmm. It's I think give people something that's great to listen to,
Yeah,
and then let them make their
yeah,
decision from there. But yeah, it was an interesting year last year with the move.
yeah,
Now I'm happy we're here. We're not moving, so now we can hopefully surprise people with a lot of new products this year and a lot of really crazy stuff on Forkbeard.
yeah.
We're getting, like I said, getting close to that, and there's going to be a lot of product intros. It's just I'm kind of keeping quiet about them until we do it, because I usually say, yeah, it's done in April, and it'll be like August, before it happens. So I need to stop doing that.
And kind of especially I've learned on how things can change.
Yeah, things change. Yeah, we were going to introduce Starnia, which is our
Yeah,
top tube phono preamp, in December. Now it'll be like late this month, just because we found a couple things that we should probably take care of. So we did. And then, the line time at the house that does the PC board assembly got taken up. So it got pushed a bit. So it wasn't like a 1 week thing. It now became like a 6 week thing. There's nothing I can do about that. Probably because I said, oh, I think we might ship it in December. And yeah, sure enough, it didn't happen. So I'm just going to shut up, and hopefully we get some things out more on time.
so I actually think that kind of wraps up this.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, you got a lot of good information out of me, because it's a great interview, because you covered everything from music to some of the wackier stuff that we're doing, and what things sound like. That's the toughest thing. It's like getting things to sound good. So, but we'll get there. First, get them to not catch on fire. Second, get them to sound good. There you go. Recipe for a successful audio company. Oh, and everything else.
So I actually just wanted to say a thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh no, thank you. I love talking to people. I love doing these interviews, because it actually helps me, as well, kind of put things together and figure out what I want to do.
Yeah,
Um, when I'm back in California, we'll be able to do a shitter list meet there once we actually have the shitter here. Still working on that. We'll get there. Again, too many things to do right now. Talk to Tyler. He's losing his mind right now. But hey, at least I don't have to do everything.
so I actually just wanted to say so that wraps up, um and just wanted to say like that that I definitely very much enjoyed this whole thing.
So did I. No, I mean, thanks for talking to me, man. I mean, this is fantastic.
Um so uh um so that Um, so uh um so that like is pretty much like the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I gotta make some dinner now and then try to figure out why this thing is being a pain. So, still plenty to do.
So thank you and bye.
Thank you. And yeah, if you want to talk in the future, let me know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.